We'll never get it. But it's words away. As the senator. On his patience, as it understands. Yeah, no, that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are conducting the meeting on September 11th for the 2000.
Counselor, we don't have a quorum yet, so.
Oh, we don't?
No.
Oh, okay.
We need 7. No worries. I would say. These occasions and understands.
Yeah.
Okay, so just copy that sentence and then suggest your changes.
Might be too.
Good evening, everyone. This is September 11th, and you're listening in on the 2023 African Descent Advisory Committee. At first, I'd like to call the meeting to order and the land acknowledgement, please. The African Nova Scotian affirmation.
How do I turn it on? Push. Push. Good evening, members of committee. I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that we hold this meeting in Mi'kma'ki, the historical and ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq people. We are settlers on this land, and we have a responsibility to truth and reconciliation. And our role, in particular as persons of African ancestry, is to acknowledge and keep in mind the safety and consideration that First Peoples gave to us when we came to this land. Thank you.
Thank you. The next order of business is the election of chair.
The African Nova Scotian
Oh.
affirmation.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Do you have that?
African Nova Scotia, yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's
Go
okay,
ahead.
Councillor. We humbly acknowledge and celebrate the profound contributions of people of African descent in shaping Nova Scotia's rich history and vibrant culture. From their earliest presence to the present, African Nova Scotians have been integral founding members, leaving an enduring mark on our community for over 400 years. Their teachings, resilience, and unwavering strength inspire us, providing a historical stronghold that reminds us of the victories achieved amid challenges. Their labor, culture, and heartache have laid the foundation upon which we proudly stand today. Drawing upon the wisdom of an African proverb, we recognize that our strength is rooted in the collective triumphs of our ancestors. We are guided by their enduring spirit as we face contemporary challenges and strive for a more inclusive, equitable, and united future. In this space, we commit to honoring the rich contributions of people of African descent, fostering a community that celebrates diversity, equality, and unity. Together, let us build upon the legacy of our ancestors, drawing strength from their experiences as we work toward a more and just, compassionate society for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a few housekeeping items. The washrooms are to the left. There's a tag on the door. Number 2 is hit talk to speak and hit again to stop talking. And the emergency exits are located at the back and through the main doors. Thank you. The next item on our list is election of the chair. Do I have any nominations, please? I'll pass it.
Thank you, Councillor.
You're welcome.
I'll open the floor for nominations for the position of chair at this time. Anybody for the position of chair?
I move that Councilor Stoddard be nominated for chair.
Actually, Councillor Stoddard cannot be chair, right? She's double checking. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're gonna need a seconder for that nomination.
I second it.
I'm sorry, Dorothy, can you repeat if we are allowed to re-elect?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yep, nominated by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Say yay or nay.
Yay.
Thank you. I hereby declare Councillor Stoddard as chair for African Descent Advisory Committee. You can take it.
Great, thank you to the committee. I hope I live up to your expectations. Thank you. And next we'll have Madam Clerk, if you want to settle on item number 1.3.
You can take over chair for election for vice chair.
Okay. I'd like to call for nominations of the vice chair, please.
Our apologies. We do have a correction. Section 16 of your terms of reference said that the committee shall annually elect a chair and vice chair from among the non-council members of the committee. So unfortunately, both Councilors Stoddard and Councilor Smith could not serve as chair or vice chair.
But if I could we make an amendment to that rule? I would like to make an amendment to that rule.
So because it's in your terms of reference, apologies, Krista Vining, acting deputy clerk with the clerk's office. Because it's in your terms of reference, to make any changes to your terms of reference, you would need to request the change be made to your appointing body, which would be the Executive Standing Committee. And then they would have to take that away and approve any sort of
Okay,
changes.
the word, I'm sorry.
Do you want to say?
I think I'm going to fight with this microphone. Tracy Jones Grant, Managing Director, Office of Diversity and Inclusion. The reason that the terms of reference were written in that way is that when we did community consultations, one of the big points was that the community managed this committee, and that counselors sit on the committee, but it's owned and kind of managed and directed by the committee itself. So you can change your terms of reference. It'll hold things up. But, let me just say, if I may, being a chair is really not that hard. You meet with Tamar and the clerk and myself and set the agenda for each meeting. You chair the meeting, which is what Councilor Stoddard is doing right now. You also get to help reach out to the members to see if there's things that they want brought forward. So I really think, if at all possible, for this first year, this is your first year getting off the ground. And if you find after a year of doing it or a few months doing it that you do want to amend the terms of reference, then we can always bring a motion forward and then go through the process with regional council to make any of those changes. Thank you.
Like, how many hours a week is the commitment to chair?
So we do agenda setting approximately 2 weeks before the meeting. And that takes us about half an hour. And other than that, the only thing might be if you're invited to attend an event on behalf of the committee. It's really what I found, and this is my third committee I'm involved with, it's really not a whole lot of work. And this year in particular, because this is a learning year, it won't be a lot of work because it's about getting all the information you need, and then as you move forward, looking at decisions. So the first year is really a learning. Let's get our feet under ourselves. Let's get those documents from the municipality that maybe we want to address. So if I was to look at a month outside of a meeting, I would probably say it's about an hour. Yeah, it's about an hour.
Well, I'd be interested. Yeah, I'd be interested in doing that.
Can I answer the question first? When you were reading the word among, did you read the word among that week? But what I noticed is that she's already among us. She's already part of the committee. So we didn't go find her off the council. So since she's already a part of the committee, that wouldn't apply to her.
The non-council members.
Do you
of
mind
the-
reading that again so I can
Yep.
get I'm foggy there a little bit.
Yeah, section 16 of of your terms of reference say the committee shall elect annually a chair and vice chair from among the non-council members of the committee. So because the committee, this is your very first meeting, what we did is, a lot of you are probably unfamiliar with chairing, and therefore we as the clerk's office cannot call an official meeting to order, per Administrative Order 1. So we reached out to Councillor Stoddard to act as a chair to call the meeting to order and then turn the meeting over to the clerk's office, which has been done, to call for nominations of chair. And you can nominate yourself. You would just need a seconder, and you can consider more than one nomination if you so like.
So I'll nominate myself as chair.
Do we have a seconder for the nomination?
Trevor. Sorry about that. I would like to nominate Chioma for chair.
Second the motion?
Do we have a seconder for Andrew? Do we have any other nominations on the floor? Okay, we're just going to go on a vote for the chair. Chioma is declared as the new chair of the African Descent Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. That was quick. I'm going to start by,
Election of vice chair first.
oh, okay, perfect. The chair runs this part of the election. Oh, okay, that's me. I will open the floor for nominations for the position of vice chair. Oh, calling nominations, each nomination requires a mover and a seconder. Chairs call 3 times for any.
Sorry, Chioma, sorry to cut you off. We're just gonna have a mover and seconder that you're the successful chair for the committee.
Okay. Perfect.
Can we get a mover?
I'll second.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay. Chair calls 3 times. Oh, okay.
Yay.
Okay. Chair calls 3 times for any further nominations. Okay. Call for a motion to appoint successful nominee. Requires a mover and a seconder. Call for the question. All those in favor, oh, you already did that. Anyway, ask for any errors or omissions.
So you don't have to read everything on there. So our first step is
Yeah.
we're going to call for the vice chair.
Okay.
Call for nomination.
Nations. Okay,
We'll guide you through it.
okay.
So you don't have to read
Read
everything.
all the red. Okay.
So-
Okay, so I'm gonna call for nomination for vice president, vice chair, vice chair.
So you're calling it first time?
Yeah,
Nominations?
yeah, nomination.
Nominate Andrew.
Andrew?
I second.
I agree.
You can call for every other.
Oh, we call for nomination. Any nominations? Okay. Any nomination, guys? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So you now get three to nominate, and now I now realize how
Yeah.
it is. Now you're just going to formally appoint. You need a mover and a seconder to formally appoint Andrew as your vice chair.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder to formally appoint Andrew as my vice chair.
I so move.
Perfect. Then do I call it? Okay, so all those in favor of Andrew being vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed, you would say no.
Okay, and anyone opposed? Better not be. Perfect. Okay. Where, is this the part I call any errors and omission? Okay.
Just go to number 2.
Approval of minutes, number 2.
Okay, approval of minutes?
There's no three.
And you just say none.
Okay, none. Okay, perfect. And then approval for other business and approval of addition and deletions?
There have been no additions or deletions received by the clerk's office.
Okay, yes or no? It says here.
No.
No, okay.
You can go ahead to number 4.
Okay, perfect.
And then we need a mover and seconder for the approval of the order of business,
Okay.
which
So
is number 3.
number 3. Okay, I need a seconder and a mover for the other business.
I move.
Some,
second.
I sec, oh, okay. Okay,
Seconded by Andrew. Yep. Go ahead.
perfect. And then now we can move to number 4? Okay. Business arising out of the minutes, none, it says.
Yep.
Call for the declaration of conflict of interest. Ask members if there's any conflict of interest to declare as a result of the agenda items. Is there any conflict? Perfect. Okay. And then a mover and a seconder as well? Okay, perfect. And then we move to number 6?
Mhm.
Okay, consideration of deferred business, none. Okay, second,
Excuse me, could I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
What does that deferred business, what does that mean? I kind of don't know. Can anybody tell me? Deferred business? What's?
That would mean if we had minutes before and then we had something on the agenda that would defer to another meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So correspondence, petition, and delegations. As the well, that's me, I think. If any correspondence have received by the clerk's office?
There have been no correspondence, petitions, or presentations received by the clerk's office.
Okay.
To number
Perfect.
8.
Number 8, okay. Information items brought forward, none. And then we move to number 9?
Yep.
Perfect. Reports/discussion, review of terms of reference. Staff, Dorothy.
Yep.
Okay.
I can take over.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
I'm learning too, so, yeah. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted us to touch base in terms of the terms of reference that I circulated for the committee. If anyone had any questions that they had on the terms of reference, and I'll just do like a brief, really brief description of the objectives and the duties of the committee. So as outlined in the terms of reference, the objectives of the committee is to the advice provided by the committee shall be guided by the following objectives set out in the terms of reference. So those are the full participation of all people of African descent in civic and community affairs, increased civic and community awareness regarding people of African descent, the elimination of barriers facing people of African descent, and the provisions of equitable opportunities for the municipalities, people of African descent to voice their views. And the duties of the committee are to advise council through the Executive Standing Committee. So the reporting body for this committee is the Executive Standing Committee. And the committee will be advising on strategies for implementing the principles of the International Decade of the People of African Descent under the pillars of recognition, development, and justice. The committee will also be advising the Executive Standing Committee on reviewing and receiving municipal policies, priorities, and decisions. They will also be advising Executive Standing Committee by providing mechanisms to engage and empower people of African descent to fully participate in the political process and at municipal level. They'll also provide information and resources about people of African descent issues to the council and other emerging issues and trends of significance to people of African descent communities as they relate to municipal services and programs. They advise the interests and needs of historic African Nova Scotian communities with respect to municipal programs and service delivery. And the committee will also make recommendations about strategies designed to achieve the objectives of the committee. In addition to advising council through the Executive Standing Committee, the committee will also be advising the African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office on issues and matters relating to concerns of people of African descent when requested to do so by the CAO. The committee will also host community consultations related to people of African descent in the municipality. This will include an annual town hall and reports to the Executive Standing Committee on issues related through such community consultations. And finally, the committee may also develop an annual work plan for approval by the Executive Standing Committee. Thank you. I'll take questions. And
Nice. Excuse me. Is there a statute of limitations on how far we can go back in terms of how the HRM policies affect the African Nova Scotian community? Because the African Nova Scotian community was here before the HRM was here. So we can go back to when HRM was started, City of Halifax, New Scotland was started. We were here already. And so their policies back then affected our people. So are we limited how far we can go back? Or I have another question as well. We say elimination of barriers. Which barriers are we talking about? And when we give advice to council, I asked this question before, we have to go through the CAO. And I looked at him, he's a white person, so that's not a problem. But what I mean is that how do we give our opinion to the council? And I should mention this so that you can get ready for me. It's more important that I am respected by the community that I'm from. I'm here to bring their views. And I've been talking since I got on this committee to the people. There's a lot, and it's too much for me to bring up now. Sorry, Dorothy, I threw a lot at you, but give it a good shot.
thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. I'll give it to Tracy.
So formally, how I'm supposed to answer you is I'm supposed to say, through you, Madam Chair, to the member. Hopefully I can answer some of your questions. Basically, I'm going to go round and about. I'm going to start with the question you had about the elimination of barriers. One of the key roles of this committee is to identify those barriers and come up with recommendations on how the municipality can address barriers. The way that it's formally done is that this committee would make a recommendation. It's just the way government works. So this committee makes a recommendation that then goes up to the executive standing committee. So you might make a motion for the CAO too, or for something. That goes to the executive standing committee. And then usually that also then moves up to council. All of our recommendations that we make when we're working in this formal setting are always through the CAO. That's kind of why it's sort of like, why am I giving these recommendations to the CAO? But how you might word something is through the direct the CAO through the African Nova Scotian Affairs Advisory Committee to do A, B, or C. Or through the CAO, direct the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to do A, B, or C. Or through the CAO, gather the following information from planning and development. So that's just the sort of formality of municipal government. Everything is through the CAO because the CAO is the only person who can actually direct the work of staff. So regional council can't tell us what to do. They have to go through the CAO. So that it's kind of two of your questions. This committee should be looking at, what are the things we need to address? What is the city doing, not doing, could be doing, should be doing with respect to our African descent communities? And what conversations are we going to have at this committee with respect to that? So that's kind of, if you've got a whole list of things, you can look at ensuring that your chair and your vice chair know, so that when they're setting the agenda, these things are coming forward on your agendas for your discussion.
I have a question before you continue.
Yes?
How long does a recommendation take to be seen? That's another question.
Oh, to be seen.
Like, when I mean seen, is that to actually be implemented?
Oh.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's,
well, it depends,
Yeah.
right? So there's that whole process of getting it from you
yeah,
to the CAO,
yeah,
to staff.
yeah.
A lot of the times you're asking for a report.
Mm-hmm.
I want a report on,
Yeah,
and then that report could include recommendations or information, or you get
Yeah.
that report. It sometimes depends on what the item is.
yeah,
On how long the process might take,
yeah,
or you might make a recommendation that goes to executive standing committee,
yeah.
but it's something that needs to now go to the transportation standing
Yeah.
committee.
So
So it's
That's fair.
I can't give you a specific time
Timeline.
frame
Could-
on how things go. One thing that
Yeah.
you do, I think, as a committee need to understand,
yeah,
municipal government works slow.
mm-hmm.
But I would say that since we've created the D&I office,
Yeah.
since ANSIO and some other things,
Yeah,
the work that we've been doing related specifically to culturally diverse communities
yeah.
has been moving fairly quickly.
Okay.
But again, it's unfair to kind of give a timeline
Yeah.
depending on what
That's-
it is or how many people have to see it, right?
That's fair. I come from a healthcare background, so I was wondering, so when we do have recommendations, does this committee also talk about like funding for certain healthcare, mental health in the community kind of stuff? Or what are we trying to focus?
You're
on?
focusing on municipal
Beautiful.
services. So we
So-
don't do education.
Okay,
We don't do healthcare.
okay.
Of course, there is our role in homelessness and housing.
Of
There
course,
is-
that's
We always
healthcare.
have a role, but
Yeah.
we don't sometimes have the authority to make a decision on
Decision.
something.
Okay,
In past committees,
Yeah.
we've done a recommendation where we've asked the mayor to send the letter to
yeah,
a different level of government.
okay,
So there's those types of things. things that can
Mhm.
be done.
Yeah,
But again, it's really around things that we're responsible for.
Yeah.
So it could be, transportation, accessibility.
yeah,
We have a role in homelessness and housing. We have
Of
a role
course.
in planning.
yeah,
We have a role in climate.
yeah,
We have a role in roads and
Yeah.
street lights and,
yeah.
all of
Of
those
course.
types of
Yeah,
things.
and as you say, like homelessness is part of healthcare, like obviously getting them off the street, it's a whole chain. Um, but also, what was I gonna say? Okay, that sounds good. And then does this committee like help with like suggestions of like funding for research on homelessness, for example?
You can make recommendations.
Yeah,
You could make a recommendation that this requires funding.
yeah,
A lot of funding stuff
yeah.
goes through our planning process.
Okay.
So, I think, if you make good, strong recommendations
Okay.
and, you say, this recommendation is mute without council's commitment of financial
Yeah,
funds to
Yeah.
it. I mean, I just don't know because I can't tell
of
this
course,
committee what to do.
of course.
And I want to go back, Jerry, to your comment about statute of limitations. Well, hello. I guess, the committee's the one that determines how far you want to go back or what you want to address. I would probably say that addressing things that are most recent. Now, for example, when we look at historical African Nova Scotian communities in the municipality, and maybe you're looking at roads or boundaries or lighting or water access or whatever transit, all of those things do go back. So you might request a staff report to say, we want to know when these boundaries were set or whatever. And then our team would do the research to provide as much background and data as possible. So I don't think I would say there's a statute of limitations, but I would caution you on going back to, time that we may not be able to provide you with accurate information.
I speak on it, and am I, okay. What I wanted to do was, there's a council report, item number 11.4.3. It's called the Africville, it's April 6, 2021, called the Africville Visioning Process. I found it to be insulting. And it said that it was to help people of Africville, the descendants of Africville, but actually these are residents. I'm a descendant of people from Africville. This happened in our lifetime. So the people who got criminally taken out of Africville are still alive. And so I would like the HRM, this report here said things like, they're going to relocate them again to Bain Street Master Plan. What's going on here?
So
I'm upset about it, actually.
If I may jump in.
What's going on?
That is something that you could put on an agenda and ask all of your committee members to have, that report or do more. I mean, the clerk's office would have to help you on what's the proper part on getting it on the agenda because they know that part. I know the information part. They know the process part. So if you wanted that as a discussion item, or follow up on that, then you would put it on the agenda. So tonight is not an opportunity necessarily to kind of, but that's exactly what this committee has a role in, looking at council reports, perhaps questioning them or making recommendations or suggestions or whatever.
Yeah, so I wanted to make a comment. I know you said that you guys don't deal with healthcare, we don't deal with healthcare, but everything is so intertwined because you're talking about water. Water has to do with healthcare.
Again, it's things,
So,
it's not that you can't have the discussion.
Yeah.
It's what we can influence.
okay.
So this committee is really important
Yeah.
because we need to influence municipal government's
Yeah.
services.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean
yeah,
that you couldn't make a motion to ask regional council
Yeah.
to follow up with Halifax
Yeah,
Water or
exactly.
something like that.
'Cause-
But we can't change
Yeah.
Halifax Water or
Of
the Nova
course.
Scotia Health Authority
Of
or
course.
the Department of Education. So they can always be part of your conversations.
Yeah.
But I always caution committees
Yeah,
to recognize if you want to work,
yeah,
if you want to have influence,
yeah,
in some respects, our focus is limited
yeah.
to what the municipality can influence.
Something I would say that I think should be on the agenda, obviously, would be there's this movie made by a professor I actually worked with for the research, Something in the Water
Yes.
by Dr. Ingrid. I think that's a really, really interesting. Yeah.
Again, it's your
Something
agenda. We're
yeah.
staff to support you as
Okay.
to the things that you wish to talk about. So, Mr. Taylor, did I address your three things?
I'm not done in a way because I, in order to recommend that council encourage the residents of Africville to start building their homes back on the land that they own? Am I able to make that recommendation that the city get busy and do that? That's the answer to the problem. They can build on their land instead of letting dogs run on there and poop there every day. So if we could, I would like to move that the CAO, request that the city support the Africville residents to building homes on their own land, and the legal matter that they have in the court pending, and that the city find resources to assist the residents, the actual people who are still alive, who were bulldozed off of their property. There was a dump put in the middle of the community by the city, by HRM. So I saw people leaving my community in dump trucks with their furniture in it. So the HRM has to take the expense to assist the people when they fill out an application to build a home like anybody else on their own land. That's the solution to Africville.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We could request a staff report through the Executive Standing Committee to
No,
start the process.
I would like the CEO, who apparently will give a report for us, that there's a motion coming today. I don't need to wait. There's a motion coming today that the city be told by this committee, and if you don't agree with what I'm saying, just vote it down. But the committee is saying, I'm a member of the committee saying, I believe that the city should encourage the residents of Africville to build their homes on their land like any other resident of HRM.
So if I may, Jerry, you've got a very valid and important point, but it's a bit out of order. So again, it's the way government works. This meeting is not a meeting necessarily for us to jump to motions and those types of things. You have to, what is it called? You have to do a notice of motion.
They'd be okay to put a report on the floor.
To request a report.
To request a report.
Right. Yes.
They have to go through the executives.
Yeah. So Krista,
So, hi.
Krista's gonna explain this. It's a bit complicated
Yeah.
in municipal government.
So-
Sorry.
Your terms of reference and you as a committee, you're an advisory committee. You provide advice based on your subject matter expertise and through your appointments to the executive standing committee. It doesn't mean that you can't request what you're requesting. It's just the formality in which you have to go about it would be to request a staff report to the executive standing committee to have the CAO undertake XYZ of what you're looking for.
Yes, thank you. The thing is, we're here to eliminate barriers. So that's the simplistic approach, of course, that I gave just there. But the point is that that's eliminating the barrier for a person who lived in Africville who got bulldozed out of their community. That's a barrier to them living. So we eliminate that barrier today. What am I waiting for? Eat chicken and dance? No, I want to go ahead and help my folks. And so the HRM needs to do that too. Now, the rules that we have, I respect, and I respect the people who work here. I do. But now the thing is, I'm from the community. I'm actually one of those. So I see that the community of Africville, they're going to build monuments and phony churches and let people go ahead and meet and have barbecues. But I'm saying, okay, well, how come Mr. Eddie Carver is the only one living there? How come the other people can't live there? So why don't we get the city to encourage? I didn't say the city had to do nothing, but encourage. And they wake up, stop being racist, and encourage the people to build their homes on their land. It's not your land, it's their land. The city has no say. The reason I got a little caught up in this is because of this report here, and it said that they were developing, it said that they're going to engage with, this is what the city's going to do to help Africville. They're going to engage with other organizations, businesses, and levels of government whose interests could potentially impact Africville lands. And I wrote here, only Africville residents have real interest in their own land. What are we doing? We have to wake up. If we're on this committee, we have to be serious. And to me, I'm too old. I'm not playing. The thing is, we need to, that's my family.
So, Mr. Jerry, I just want to add, like, I can sense the hurt in your voice and in your story. I'm sorry. That's what I can say to you. I know it's tough. I really do know that it's tough, and to see it so stagnant. And unfortunately, that's how the world works, if I'm going to be super honest with you. Like, it's going to take time, but it's just persistence, right?
You will lose my socks. How are you going to tell me how the world works?
But it is like, you're not going to, unfortunately, they're not going to agree to it like today. And I know you're upset.
I'm speaking with passion. I'm not upset. And also, if I read the mandate of the committee, maybe I shouldn't have. But the committee, I thought, was set up to stop the racist policies of HRM harming our people. And so I'm sitting on the committee and I'm saying, okay, what? I read the reports. I have all kinds of reports that, thank you, Dorothy, has passed on to us. And the thing is, when I read them, I noticed that the HRM is saying, saying to me, can you help me not be so racist? Can you tell me what to do? I can't change a zebra into a horse. If you're racist, you're not qualified to be my leader. You can't lead us. So my point is that why is it difficult that the people of Africville who own land, the city came in and took it from them illegally, criminally, but yet we're saying, well, I guess what are we going to do? So I don't have the answer except what I tried to do. I'm sorry if I look upset or act upset or sound, I'm not actually. It's just the way I talk. I'm passionate about this issue, and I'm passionate about the land being taken. We're the only people who lose land and don't get a penny for it. Us and the indigenous folks who are part of us anyway. But this is what I'm saying. So I want that stopped if I'm going to be a legitimate member of this committee, or this committee is going to be real for the people. One of the things I've noticed is that the HRM has a goal with this committee, and the people from my community working for that group, for HRM, their job is to make the HRM goals be the main topic. I think we fail if we come here, even though we're on HRM's property and they're the ones facilitating this. It has to be the community's agenda, or we're going to be step and fetch it. And step and fetch it, as you know, we don't want to be that. So the point is that even if I talk today and be quiet for the rest of the meetings, I want to see this committee actually be serious about taking the barriers out of there. If you have a racist staff member in HRM bothering Black people working there, they should be fired. It's simple. So that means they're unqualified to lead. They can walk around and do what they want, but when they're leading, when they represent me and they don't like me or anyone who looks like me, I'm moving you out of that office. And so I shouldn't have to. The people, the mayor and all the people, council members and all that, they should be doing that. So why are we here? Why we come to this meeting? we're coming because there's years of frustration I have, as you can see. You're right. I'm upset. Okay, I'm done.
I did mental health nursing for a long time.
So not to, we can't let Jerry's point drop. One thing I'll say is, Jerry, we don't set the agendas of the meeting. That's why this committee requests the work of us. So we're here as staff, not to kind of protect the municipality or speak for the municipality, but to guide this committee in a sense in, the municipality has a variety of ways it does things. And they're not necessarily ways that when we sit on community boards or when we're working in community, we probably can work like this. So in some respects, it is the role of this committee, right? So if I may, if the concern is what's happening, what's being said, what's being done with respect to Africville, that's burning right now. So first of all, the rest of your committee members don't have necessarily the same information you have. So they should have that, right? So the visioning, or they might have it, the visioning state, the piece. Then the whole committee needs to be able to have that conversation, right? You talked about the wording in the report, you talked about who should be making decisions, all of that. So the whole committee should be part of that discussion. So it should be an agenda item for all to participate in. The third thing is as to not let it drop this evening because of your passion, if you would even recommend, as Krista had said, you want a staff report, that gets the ball rolling, right? So the staff reports that you request of us are those things that you tear apart and you say, no, we're going to make this recommendation. We're going to do that. No, you're not doing this. Yes, you're doing that. We want to see this. The committee is saying this. And then that, because we don't take and put, you say your words and then we kind of make them all nice and cheery and acceptable. If the committee has a recommendation specific, that moves forward. But again, it's that whole kind of little extra steps that are needed to take a lot of what you're talking about to move it forward. So really understand, committee, we don't set your agenda. So as Member Taylor has said, look, there's issues with Africville visioning, with this, with that. This is important. The committee needs to talk about it. The committee needs to address it. The committee needs to make recommendations. The staff don't make those recommendations. We don't write them. We don't say them. You frame them. So it's just the difficulty in that tiny little bit of process that gets the ball rolling. So Jerry, you need a little tiny process, just a little one. I want a staff report, boom. And that gets your ball rolling for your discussion, your recommendations, your everything.
Ask for that. Could the 2010 Africville agreement, could I ask for that staff report on that and start there? They mentioned here that there's a thing called the 2010 Africville agreement.
Yeah.
And maybe we could start there and then give the committee members all the information that the HRM has about Africville and then. we
So
can start.
there's part of it. So it's not just the agreement you want all the information that the staff can pull together related to Africville. Because if you just
Okay.
say the 2010 agreement, that's all you're going to get in a staff report, right? So what is it specifically, or, broadly, you want a staff report on? Give us guidance and then we'll,
If it would be helpful too, we could take this offline and we could discuss what a motion would look like at your next meeting, and we could help you form that motion where you're happy. We could also work with you through our agenda review planning to have the appropriate staff present at the meeting to answer any questions.
No, I should mention this. I want the people to see me as I am. I want to see everybody as they are. I'm not hiding. I'm not embarrassed.
No, absolutely. I just meant if you want to take it away and we can help formulate.
No.
Okay.
okay?
May I interject for a moment?
Yes.
Do you mind if we just get a little bit more clarity on the processes that we should be taking to gather information? You say we should ask for a report, but is there a formal way of doing that? Is it here informally, hey, I want this?
Mhm.
Or do we write it in our email, CC everyone?
So Krista, you want to speak specifically? to
Thank
that?
you.
Or Dorothy?
Hi. So as part of your agenda review planning, at any time you have something that you have an interest, you can write to now your chair and/or I also recommend always CCing Dorothy, or start with Dorothy and she will loop the chair in as well. At any time, you can do that. You don't have to wait for the next agenda. But what Dorothy will do is about 2 to 3 weeks prior to your next meeting, she'll reach out to all the members and she'll ask if you have any items for your agenda. And she'll take that then and bring it forward to the chair and vice chair who attend to the agenda planning meetings. And we will take away and sort of have a discussion about what it now means to be the chair and vice chair and what you can expect. But you'll come and Tracy and Russell, Tamar, any other staff that need to be there, Dorothy, we will review it with the chair. If there's any questions or follow-up, we can follow up with you as the member who, okay, are you looking for, anything else? Most of the time, what we can do is we're not doing it day of sort of thing. We're planning this over, 2 to 3 weeks before your next meeting so that when you get to your meeting, you're ready to go with that item and it can be a very smooth, hopefully conversation. That said, of course, you're going to have lots of ideas bouncing back and forth, and we may have motions that come from, we call it from the floor or on the fly. That's no problem. But also, we're there as an office to help you take your ideas and help you formulate that into a formal motion per your terms of reference and HRM's Administrative Order 1 procedure, and help you best get that through the process.
So, through you, Madam Chair, to Ms. Renee, to get something done, you can request a staff report. You can request to have something added to the agenda. Those are your two main things. If you want something that you're going to read and study and then take away and then make motions from, your best bet is to request a report that's going to provide you with as much information as we can possibly get to you, so that when you want to make a recommendation to the municipality, you've had that pre-information. Also recognize that when you're making a recommendation, because you're representing community and because you have knowledge, you don't only have to use the city's documentation to make a recommendation. You might have seen Dr. Waldron's movie. You might have seen or read an article or things. Those all can influence what you want to ask staff about or what you want to make a recommendation on. So that's kind of how you get information from us, and then you use that information how your committee chooses.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then just with regards to the recommendations, or I guess reporting on that, how robust should that be? And is that something that we have a conversation about here? Well, obviously we're having a conversation about it here, but is it something that we're actually creating a plan for? Or is it simply just, here's a blurb, this is what we'd like you to work on, and the HRM figures that out? Or is this something that we've really thought about and we want to give very clear action items to? And what do you think that should look like?
I think it sort of varies, right? So if it's something specific, so the other thing is you can make recommendations and the municipality can accept or not accept. That's just the way it is. So you could make a recommendation that's very specific. I want Tracy to dance a jig and, stand on her head while she does blah, blah, blah. You can be very, very specific, and council may come back and say, we accept this part of the recommendation, we don't accept that, or whatever. All recommendations should lead to work. So it's not just, oh, this is a nice recommendation, let's say something nice. They really should lead to work and hopefully action at some point. That's again why we really want this committee. It's that we recognize as a municipality the voice of people of African descent needs to be part of and involved in the work that we're doing. We've had ANSIO for a few years, and you know they're doing amazing pieces of work, but our community is big. Our community is diverse. And so for us to move work forward and to have more fulsome discussions and to have more community lens on that work, that was part of why this committee was needed. So your recommendations, you as a committee can have those conversations. You know, maybe this is a recommendation you want to go a little deep in. Maybe it's a recommendation where you're just asking for a staff report. Maybe it's a recommendation that, you know, you're asking the city to, you know, support A, B, or C. It's really, and of course, we have our clerk's office who can guide and say, you know, this piece of a recommendation may be more difficult than that piece. As I said, they know the real stuff. Tamar, myself, Russell, we're the workers. So we might cringe when you put a lot of work on us, but that's really, you know, that's us. We're the workers.
I have a question. I think, well, recommendation that's outside a little bit. I wonder if we can, I mean, there's so many committees. Why don't we just have like a binder with like the roles to the committee, like how to put in reports, so then people can view it when they need to and know the steps, right?
Sorry, do you mean for each committee, you want to know each committee's
No, no.
role or your?
For ours, but I wonder if another committee just even has like a booklet that they work with where it's like, let's say you want to put in a recommendation, the steps that you really need to take, like all that kind of stuff, like rules to basically being in the committee.
Yeah, so part of your orientation, I believe that would go through of how to make a motion.
Yeah.
And that was, should have been provided on your meet and greet night when you were
Yeah.
oriented. If ever you're looking for additional information on how to,
Yeah.
we have those materials that we can certainly circulate to the committee and provide sort of a how-to guide. And then if you have questions as an
Yeah.
individual member,
Yeah.
you don't need to bring those through the committee itself. You can ask, you know, I want to make a motion. How do I go about doing
Yeah.
some X, Y, Z? And Dorothy and myself, we're here, you know, basically to help you
Yeah.
do the best work that you can as a committee.
So can we, you said that you guys have documents. Can we compile those documents and make a folder so it's just more accessible to everybody?
Yeah, we actually used to put together a formal binder, and I think Dorothy would have circulated a bunch of materials in an
She did.
email to you.
Yeah, she did.
So it's more of an electronic binder
Okay.
now. But that
Yeah.
said, we can work with you if that's something you're interested in,
Yeah.
and or any other individual members
Yeah.
to provide you the best information and what
Yeah.
you're looking for
Yeah.
to help you.
Yeah, because I think it would be useful for everybody here because when we come into the meeting space, if you have a question, at least you know where to go for it. I know online is what we do now, but sometimes it just gets messy because it's not all in one place. That's what I was thinking.
Nope, great idea. We appreciate that, and we'll take that away and we'll work on getting you what you want.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, if we have no other questions or contributions, we can move to 9.1.2.
Yes, I have a recommendation. I have a recommendation I want to put forward.
So he has a recommendation he would like to put forward. Can we do that? Daryl?
Do we have time? It'll be quick. One of the recommendations I like to put forward, and I like for our committee to put forward to HRM, is the longstanding historical issue with policing in our community. I myself has been a part of this a committee that was formed years ago, and Tracy, I think you might have been on that committee as well. And as a result of that committee, in 1991, Halifax Regional Police put together their first all African Nova Scotia Black class for become police officers. And unfortunately, since then, to my knowledge, there hasn't been another class such a thing. And in my opinion, I think HRM and HRM policing has dropped the ball in that area. Just a few years ago, we've had the Mortley report come out, and from my knowledge, from reading it, I didn't read it all, I have to be honest, but I didn't see anywhere in there that there was a recommendation that we should have another class. Now, it's been almost 30 years, and some of those officers who were hired at that time in 1991 are ready to retire. And I don't know why HRM or HRM policing did not continue that, that consistency. In my opinion, they should have had at least 3 or 4 more classes of African descent officers on that committee or in that field, so that we can meet the needs of the numbers that we needed to help deal with the racism and the issues that we were dealing with and facing in the Black community. That's obviously, the more numbers we have, it's obviously going to decrease the amount of systemic racism and racism in our community, period. So we have the statistical data now that proves, obviously, from the Mortley report, that there is systemic racism and that we are disproportionately over-policed when it comes to traffic stops or whatever infractions when it comes to African Nova Scotian descent. And moreover, we are now at a stage, or I guess a phase in our community where we still don't see a whole lot of improvement in that area. So I would like our committee to ask for a report to see where we are. I would like to make a recommendation through our committee to HRM that maybe we should have another class, because I still feel we're behind, because now we're in an era where we have newcomers, we have a large immigration population coming, and we don't have anybody on our police force that represents those communities. So that's going to be problematic if we don't start, increasing those numbers. So, just wanted to make that point, make that recommendation for our committee that HRM should seriously consider doing something about that in that area.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the member, Mr. Johnson. So if I may provide some guidance on that, what you might want to begin with is to request a presentation on policing, because that's something where we'd have to bring somebody in. Neither Tamar nor I could even begin to speak to that. And then following the presentation and your opportunity to ask the presenter questions, then you can make recommendations. So your questions, we would look into who we could bring into the committee, and you can ask those questions. Can you give us the stats on, or do you know if, or why hasn't there been? And then following that presentation, you've got your information. Now you can make your recommendations. So again, jumping straight from, I want to recommend they do another class, but again, having that information in front. Maybe there's a reason there wasn't another class, or maybe I can't speak at all for a subject area necessarily, because I'm an advisor in the organization, but it's best to have first person. So your point here could be, as we talked with Member Jerry, your point could be requesting, a presentation. Maybe that's one where you want people to come in so that you can ask those questions.
And then on what I just wanted to add to that is that maybe even like education on policing for the ones that are in there, right? Like the police that are working right now.
You can,
Because I know, yes, that would be something that we, because yes, racist people should not work, but we also have to remember that racism is often deep-rooted. It's learned typically from home, and people have to be willing to change, and we can't just write everybody off. We have to be willing to educate them and hope that they're open to that. That's what I'd say to that.
so, Member Darrell, would you be happy with, I don't know how you'd word it in your minutes, but requesting a presentation? Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately, you can formally request it through a motion, or you can just say tonight, at the next meeting, I would like a presentation on policing. And you can also use this time to say, as part of that presentation, if we could also have them educate us on X, Y, Z. So specifics of what you'd be looking for in that presentation, such as what education is provided for African officers, or, what are the statistics? Et cetera, just from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, not just for African officers, for everybody, right?
For all
Because if
officers,
we're
okay.
not, if they're not hiring African Nova Scotian officers, then everyone needs to be educated, because then you don't have that buffer. Because what I do find with, like, when there's a Black person in a room, it changes the atmosphere. It does, naturally. So if we cannot have that, but at least I believe we should at least have education for the,
Yeah, mine is, my recommendation are just specific. Historically, I know the issues, so I don't need to go into that. I just want to see where we are now as a terms from where we were 30 years ago, so that I can see if the needle was moved at all. That's kind of all I'm interested in, because I know, based on observation, that it hasn't been moved. So I'm just curious if there's something I missed.
Yeah, so you certainly can formally request, through a motion, or, this is a type of piece that you could just say, we would record it for the minutes as well, moving forward, that the committee would like a presentation on policing at their next meeting. And then we take that away as staff and we work on getting that information for you. And then, of course, at the, if the chair felt like something was missing, that we didn't action it, she'd have questions and
Okay.
hold us accountable as to why it's not there.
of course.
Thank you.
You don't ask me, you ask the chair.
Yes.
On the subject of presentations, I think with the matters raised by Member Darrell and Member Jerry, would it be possible to have a presentation from staff on the work, Africville-related work to date? That way, as Member Darrell mentioned, we can see the progress that's been made, as we've seen with some of the documents that folks are familiar with, say the Africville Agreement
Yeah.
of 2010. There are a few others as well,
Yeah.
but it may be better use of our time as the committee to have a staff member present who we can ask questions and get the full package, because as you're aware, most of the reports tend to build off of other reports.
Yeah,
So
course.
if we can get that full stretch of
I agree.
all activity, projects, programs, policies
Yeah.
related to Africville.
Yes.
Same goes with policing.
Yes.
And then those two matters, for the moment, could be what we focus our time and our energy on.
Yeah.
And we see how we can bring our expertise to
I
finding
agree.
some actions on them.
Does everyone else agree? Are we in agreement? Yeah, that's the two issues that we would like to focus on, if that's okay, right now?
Something.
Yes.
This report done by Enrico Simmons, I think Enrico Simon. I think it's Simons. I'm not sure. Simons, yeah. Could we have him? I found his report fascinating and very, very good. So could he come in and give us kind of a rundown of what he discovered? And I read it, and The thing I should mention, as well as, I believe Dorothy sent emails out with all this information, and I would recommend that everyone just go on your computer and kind of get that if you can. That would be helpful. I'll leave it there. So I don't know how to do it properly, but what I mean is, can I recommend that Mr. Simons come in at our next meeting and give us a rundown of his report and take questions and help us to get our stuff up to date on what he found in the community?
Yeah, so we'll take that away and we will reach out to that individual and we'll ask if they're available. If it's just a matter of scheduling, we'll communicate that with you of, unfortunately, we can't make this meeting, but we can make the next meeting. And they do reserve, all we can do is make the ask. If they choose that they don't want to come to the committee, we can cross that bridge when we get there of what to do. I haven't typically seen anybody say no when it comes to, I'm interested to hear your work.
All right, I'm sorry, I didn't name the report. It's called HRM Anti-Black Racism.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we should all hear about it. Yeah, okay.
Right, perfect.
So are we moving on?
And
Okay.
if I may, Madam Chair, just want the committee to recognize, it may take us a couple of meetings to set up all of this, just so that it doesn't all happen on the same night, so.
Yes.
But we've got to know.
Perfect, thank you. So we are 9.1, correct? Are we 9.1?
9.1.2.
Okay, 2. All right. So African Descendant Advisory Committee 2023 meeting schedule. Call for the motion. This requires a mover and a seconder.
So that's just for the approval of the proposed meeting schedule.
Yeah,
Can I
So you're
inter-
gonna have to put the motion on the floor and then
Okay.
we need a mover and a seconder.
Okay.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
I had something way back 9.1.1. We were talking about the review of the terms of reference. I had a couple of questions about that, but I'm looking, I don't think nobody.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Is that all right, Madam Chair? Yeah, okay. Okay, give me a second. I'm getting myself together here. Okay, this is a question. Okay, when we're talking about why we're here, what our job is, and the reason the committee was set up because of the UN, I believe so, Declaration of till 2025 about African people. And then that would mean our connection to Africa and what's happening in Burkina Faso and all those countries that are fighting for their independence. Our connection to each other, then our connection to the HRM, then our connection to our ancestors, mainly our connection to God, basically. And so as far as I could see, I'm still a little foggy, which might be my own problem, but what I mean is I'm a little foggy on what the terms of reference, what is our job? And so I believe that if we were given an opportunity to review the terms of reference, look, maybe just sit and listen to Tracy for a long time to what we need to be doing, would be better for me, because I don't want to be taking up all the time talking, about other things. So what I want to do is be effective. So how do we get to know what our terms of reference is in a clear fashion? Was that my responsibility? Somebody?
So reading the terms of reference is every individual member's responsibilities, but to make it really kind of simplified in some respects, the role of this committee is to request information that they may want to influence. So if there is, and I'll go back to the Africville piece. You are requesting information. I like Map's piece, although he put a lot out there. You want everything on Africville to date so that you have that information to look through. And then as you're looking through that, the role of this committee is to say, oh, the city said they did this, the community is saying this, we're recommending this. or the city did this and it had this impact, and this is where we think the city needs to go next. So your role as a committee is to look at municipal work through the lens of people of African descent to see how is that impacting community and what does the city need to be doing to impact community. That's the simplest way to put it. You can request documents from us. So for example, there's planning happening, I'm making this up, please understand. There's planning happening in Spryfield. But we think that planning or development is going to impact the African Nova Scotian community. Well, hold on, this committee wants to know more about that. We want information on that, and we want to be able to influence that or provide our feedback on that. So those are the types of things. So you're going to request of us, and then as staff, it is our responsibility to also keep you up to date. We might know that something's happening, and we want to ensure that this committee has their eyes on it. Pick something that goes to every committee right now, Halifax. That is our climate change thing. This will be the first time that might be looked at strictly through the lens of people of African ancestry. What does climate change and the work that the city's doing mean or have influence on our community? It could mean impact on our water usage and access. It could mean impacting whether trees are cut down or roads are paved, or we get access to solar housing opportunities. Like, in a sense, I'm making things up, but that's where we might come to you and say, we would like the committee's feedback on this. But it's also your responsibility, as you did this evening, to bring to staff, listen, we want more information because we want to influence this. So it's kind of two ways. I think that's the simplest way to put it, is that this is a real opportunity, again, for a group of folks to be able to put their lens on municipal work and to help provide feedback, guidance, shape, whatever it comes from this committee. Again, please be clear, as staff, we don't tell this committee what to do. We certainly don't tell this committee what to say, but it is our responsibility to then try and take what you recommend or what you say and move it into action. Does that help, Council Member Jerry?
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes. Go ahead.
would it be possible for us to request HRM staff to look across their various departments and identify some big upcoming projects that impact the African Nova Scotian and African descended communities? I mean, we all are probably familiar with certain pockets of government and different departments, but staff are more intimately aware of what's coming and what's ongoing. So I think of immediately big developments like the Cogswell interchange and that type of thing that's going to affect, the historic Black community of the North End. But there are other things going on that aren't necessarily development related. So would staff be able to identify some of those with a range? So not just planning and development, parks and recreation, transit, et cetera. Halifax is a good one as well. If they could identify some of those, and then maybe amongst ourselves, we can start to see maybe which ones are, the most immediate, pressing, urgent, or the most impactful. I don't know, we could figure out a way to prioritize them. But I think once we get a good layout of what exactly the city is working on, we'd have a better sense of, which ones we should tackle first.
I agree.
So essentially what you're suggesting too is that you can take that information and create a work plan or a map of what you want to do for the remainder of 2023, working into 2024, and really,
Precisely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's very brilliant. I like it. So we're back to talking about the meeting schedule. So for 2023, we have September 11th, which is today, and then October 16th, and then it is November 20th and December 11th. And call for questions. All those in favor of those dates, yay or nay?
Nay.
Opposed?
Sorry, Chair, we need a mover and then a seconder, and then you call the question.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I need a seconder and a mover. And then I say the question again? Okay, so all those in favor of the dates, September 11th, October 16th, November 20th, and December 11th, yea or nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay.
So your first step is to read the motion and ask somebody to move it. So your motion
Oh.
is that the African Descent Advisory Committee approve their proposed 2023 meeting schedule as presented. So you
Okay.
need somebody to move that.
Okay, so I need somebody to move that. motion.
Okay,
Okay.
so Andrew's moved it. Now you need someone to second it.
I need someone to second it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay. So then all those in favor?
You can also just, you can use this time now to debate, make any amendments before you take your final vote.
If I could, I would,
Yeah,
we
go
have
on.
permission, Madam Chair? I believe that, I think it was 2021 that the UN gave us this mandate, I believe. We're late, so I believe we need, this is just my opinion, I believe we need to do more work, get more up to date, spend more time, not just in a formal meeting, but doing something different. And we have to spend more time getting up to snuff, up to par, informed. So I believe we should have more meetings or longer, I know that's going to be hurtful, longer, a different way to do it, if I may.
Madam Chair, just through you to the member. So the thing that we can do is get information to you through the clerk's office. The problem with more meetings is that I have 3 committees. So, and others, the clerk's office has a variety of committees, and our mandate says just once a month. And you keep saying that this was mandated by the United Nations, but this committee wasn't mandated by the United Nations. What it says is that in the terms of reference, that the municipality is aware that the United Nations General Assembly adopted its resolution. So this committee actually came out of work that we were doing around anti-Black racism. So the decade, listen, folks, we know that the decade's going to end, but that doesn't mean our work ends or that we're not going to continue the work that was identified in the decade. So to have a whole lot of meetings might be a little difficult. I'm not sure if our team has the capacity or the clerk's office. The other thing that the committee needs to understand is your only official meetings are those that are held that the public can participate in. Those are the only meetings where a decision can be made or motions can be put forward or any of those types of things. That's just the way it is with a council-endorsed committee. That doesn't mean you can't talk to each other or do whatever, but any decisions, any motions, any business has to be done. So if people have conversations or do things through email or whatever, that's fine. But it's not endorsed or considered council work.
Okay.
Sorry, I want to just add on to that as just so everybody is very, very clear, because you represent the municipality as a member of this board, that any emails or information that you provide, sort of, I would more say the email trail, is subject to the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act, and therefore could be called upon for you to be able to provide your records. I just want to caution, we really try to do all your work in a public forum for transparency purposes. Again, that's not stopping you from sharing ideas with one another to be able to sort of, if Andrew and Daryl wanted to take, have a conversation, be like, hey, I'm thinking of this idea. I want to bring it to the committee. What do you think? Okay, yep, we'll do it this way. Or chatting with the chair, that sort of thing. That's all well and good. It's trying to limit, again, making your decisions, do that in a very public form. But knowing that at any time, your emails could be subject to a request. So just in terms of making sure that it's very transparent in that, how you want to represent yourself and handle yourself.
So again, Counselor Taylor's request to increase meetings or lengthen the time of meetings, where both suggestions are still on the floor.
Okay.
So we'd be actually looking for some suggestions. So so right now we just went based on what we thought might work, and that's what we're proposing as a clerk's office. If you want longer meetings, just tell us, we want a 3-hour meeting as opposed to 2 hours. The standard is typically a 2-hour meeting. Your terms of reference say monthly. Monthly, you can go monthly, and if you feel you need additional meetings, you can also call special meetings to deal with a particular subject matter. Special meetings do have certain requirements around it. Usually, with a special meeting, the agenda is set with one subject matter in mind for you to discuss, but we can walk you through all of that as well. If you feel that not enough meetings, it's not enough, you want to meet weekly, it is more of a challenge, yes, for staff. Of course, we'll do the best we can based on the direction we're provided, but it's really in your prerogative. The other thing you can look at too is are you happy with meeting in person? Do you want to do it where each month you determine based on agenda review, do we hold, it virtually or in person? Unfortunately, we don't have the option to do a hybrid at this time, but We're
Madam
working
Chair,
away.
could I?
Mhm.
could I- I want to revise what I said a little bit. I feel, out of respect for everybody here, that we give the committee members a chance to get updated on what HRM is doing in the Black community. So how do we do that? Is basically what I'm asking. I'm not saying that people don't know,
Yeah.
but I was shocked when I read all the documents. Before I read the documents, I was in a different space. So I believe if everybody gets a chance to look at all the things that are going on in the HRM, and when it comes to our community, this committee would maybe have a different approach, in my opinion.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's what you have a standing item on your agendas, which is the ANSIO monthly update. And every month, the African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office will give you an update of work that's being done relative to the community, work that's being done relative to the committee. So you will get that on a monthly basis.
So did you say that we cannot have some virtual meetings and then some in person?
You can do, so you can decide on a month-by-month basis.
Yeah.
So if you set your schedule today based on I'm just looking, 3 remaining dates of 2023. And then we would bring forward in probably December a schedule, for a proposed schedule for 2024.
Okay.
You could take it away and decide. Right now, we were proposing that the meetings be held in this meeting space here at the Harbor East Marine Drive
Yeah.
meeting space. But that doesn't limit you, that if
Mhm.
you choose, you want to decide on a month-by-month basis of whether or not you want to hold your meetings virtual or in person. If you decide you don't want to hold it in this meeting space and you'd like to go to Halifax Hall or another location, we would need to take it away and look at when you are outside of an HRM facility, technology becomes more limited, but we would work with you based on what it is that you're looking to do.
Yeah, so personally, from making it longer. So I have a daughter and I have a husband and I have 3 volunteer positions and I work full time. So if it's going to be longer, I would prefer virtual personally.
May I? I'd also like to bring to the table
Yeah.
a different date. I'm in school and I already have commitments on this day. Today's the only day that I was able to make it, but I wouldn't be able to make any of the other ones this year. So if we could discuss, I'm available any other day
Yeah,
at the same time.
that makes sense.
So can I ask, how does, or let me just first ask how you selected this day? Like, is this the day where the space was available, where all folks were available, or are there other options in that way?
A lot of things went to it. So when we did the reception, I did circulate a poll and people kind of chose what worked best. So that, and considering also the availability of the room. But as Krista said, you can switch to virtual if it works better, if the room is not available, or a different location for a different day.
We can, yeah, I was gonna say, we can scratch everything. We
And
can
start
start
over.
fresh and we can say, we want the 4th Wednesday of every month, or it would typically, we say the 3rd or the 4th or the 1st of whatever day of the week you like. Friday evenings aren't just an FYI, the best time to have a meeting. So, and the other thing is that time of day, that's up to your prerogative. If you want to meet a little later in the evening because 6 o'clock isn't great for traffic, if you want to meet earlier, and then again, flexibility in terms of location, whether that's virtual or in person, and then the type of meeting space. And we would have to look at availability if it's this meeting space because it's quite desirable.
That makes sense. Thank you. Suggestions for dates? Is that what we're talking about now?
Monday to Thursday, 6 to 8, keeping it the same time frame. Does anybody have a scheduling conflict on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday at this time?
On Tuesday, so I'm part of a Lions Club, so I do some foot care and volunteering for the bingo for the community. So on Tuesday, 6 to 8, I'm busy. But any other day of the week, I'm good.
Tuesdays, sorry, ma'am.
That's
For you to the chair. Tuesdays are usually out for me. Every other Tuesday I have council and it could last. It could last till 8, 9 o'clock. So I would probably prefer that day wouldn't work for me. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I? Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't think it's gonna be possible for this committee to be able to accommodate everyone, because we all have different busy lives and different schedules in the evening. I myself, I'm okay with Mondays. Tuesdays, I'm good. So I'm not saying it for me. I'm just saying we could be here all night trying to figure out that.
Why don't we
What-
do
what the
Monday?
What the committee or what the advisory board decided, I think is, I think is okay. Once a month, for 2 hours or whatever it is, I think that's perfect. Any more than that, we'll be just inundated with.
Yeah.
Through you,
I just,
through you, Chair, we could possibly just recirculate like another poll
yes.
and then try to decide what works best for the next meeting, October.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
So essentially, you're just deferring approving a schedule for 2023. We'll try to take away poll members. Again, we're possibly not going to satisfy absolutely every single member.
Yeah.
And there we try to do a majority so that we can ensure quorum. It's challenge. It's scheduling
course.
is always a challenge.
May I, Madam Chair? So I have a question related to like membership. How many times is it that you're that you're not present, that you're no longer part of the committee? Is it 2?
That will be 2 consecutive meetings.
And I think we could have that as a conversation. I mean, if we book this on a night you have class, but you're actively engaged and providing feedback and all of that, I think that that would be well into consideration. Yes. And you don't know what your schedule's going to be come January. So if it's between now and December, that you can only participate virtually or through sending in your comments or whatever, I would like to
Yeah,
say.
unfortunately, we can't do it. You could send in your comments, but you would still be noted as regrets. And
Yes.
under administrative order, there are strict rules around meeting or missing meetings. So by the third consecutive meeting in a row, if you haven't been granted a leave of absence, if you needed a leave of absence during the timeframe, and that would be done through the executive, you would be deemed as having resigned. So I think we would just need to take that away and carefully plan with you if we know that you're going to have a few absences in a row and help guide you in the best direction. That said, I mean, you can certainly make your appeal to the members and say, this night really just doesn't work for me. Is there another night?
So I just wanted to say, I think it's fair that we accommodate her because obviously education is important and having Black people in roles of power is good, and we should try to accommodate her the best we can and support her in that journey.
So we'll work with the clerk's office on that.
So just so I'm clear, so on that motion, are we deferring it until the next meeting or?
Yeah, if you want to put just a motion to defer, just that you're going to defer, and the direction to the clerk's office is that we'll just poll the members and get a sense of when the next October. So we're looking at an October meeting date. It's just, we don't know what that looks like right now based on schedules. But we'll do our best to try and coordinate. If you tonight want to look at your schedules and say, hey, this date in October works, we can also take that away this evening and say, great, we'll schedule it for October, whatever date. And then we can work with the members offline to bring and create a new schedule for 2023 for November and December.
Perfect, thank you. What number are we on right now? Because
Yeah.
Motion first.
Yeah, do you have an October date in mind? Do you want to come to a consensus right now on an October date? Or do you want to we would need a motion to just defer this to the next meeting?
I think we should defer and then do the poll on what people's availability is and then go from there. Is that okay with everybody? Yeah. Okay. So motion to defer. I need a mover and a seconder to, yeah.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Perfect, thank you. Everyone in favor of deferring, yay, and opposed, nay. Let's go.
Yay?
Yay. Yes, you can.
Okay, I wanted to do this correctly. I would like to either get the Jacques Dubé, the CAO, it's called the case 20-22-6. It's called the Beachville Planning Strategy Review and Community Benefit Action Plan. It was done September the 8th, 2020. And I would like to request that the HRM come in and also respect for the counselor who's here, explain what this is. It's a huge document and it's the plan for a Black community, Beachville. And I would like to see if we can request that HRM report to us what they're doing with this and also have the support of the counselor who's here to help us to understand what's going on with this.
So we'll again add that to agenda review.
Agenda review?
We on number 10, added items.
Oh,
No, 9.1.3.
Okay, invite
sorry.
to make a presentation.
Yep, that is the ANSIO monthly update.
So I will be short. The evening is long. We will do more formal presentations, but again, this meeting was our introduction. This was to kind of get you familiar with some of the process and things. So basically, Tamar is the lead for the African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office. Working with Tamar, we have Russell Brooks, who leads our anti-Black racism work. And working also with Tamar, we have Jaslyn Skeet, who leads our community engagement work. So we have an office, a division of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, specifically working on African Nova Scotian, African descent issues, work within the municipality. So what we will do is monthly, we will prepare a presentation as Member Jerry had requested, giving you an update on the work that ANSIO is doing. And it may not even just be ANSIO. There might be things that are happening in other divisions that ANSIO will be able to update you on when it comes time for their presentations. But really quickly, most of what we've been doing most recently, outside of some major events that we've been engaged in, for example, Emancipation Day, and then of course we have coming up African Heritage Month, but a lot of our work most recently has been focused a bit internally. We've been trying to ensure that we are educating employees specifically around anti-Black racism. So our lead for that, Russell Brooks, has worked and designed a variety of speaker series. We've had guests in that have held webinars with staff to talk about anti-Black racism. Some of them have been really quite interesting, and we've actually had staff sort of follow up. The group has also developed, which will be rolling out this fall, I believe, anti-Black racism training. So our team, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, is responsible for a lot of the corporate D&I training. ANSIO is responsible for training already, which is specific about that we do for HRM employees, specifically about learning about working with African Nova Scotian communities. Now we need to really kind of have people understand and address and be conscious of anti-Black racism, power, and privilege. So the team developed a phenomenal training program that has been piloted twice, and we're ready to now begin offering that in the organization. Also, the team worked with our human resources division to do employment circles. So, Member Darrell, you talked about, are we recruiting for African Nova Scotians, African descent peoples in policing? Well, this team, ANSIO, does go out with human resources and do some of those employment circles, really explaining how do you get employed with HRM? It can be a pretty daunting process to try to go through our brass ring, etc. Or what are the jobs that are there? Or what does it mean to work with fire? Or, why is it that I see myself as qualified, but I'm not getting into the organization? So ANSIO does work around that. We've held our very first, for all the senior leaders in the organization, we held our very first anti-Black racism conference. Guest speakers included Nene, who's a gentleman out of Ontario who's done a lot of work in the community, specifically work with our African Nova Scotian Economic Action Plan. We had Jackie Barkley come in and speak about white privilege. We had, Reverend Dr. Anderson close us out. And let me tell you, he closed it out all right. He really kind of laid it on the line, and nothing was held back. So those were for all those leaders, the executive directors, those of us who can sit back and kind of make the decisions. Our next conference that ANSIO is planning for October is for employees, those impacted, those who work with others. And again, I think I heard it tonight when we're talking about racism, you know, it's not just talking to the people that we feel might be racist or the people who are impacted by racism. It's the organization. And this conference, the second one, is specifically on what does the organization need to be doing. So that's the next step in that. And they developed a phenomenal anti-Black racism video where employees were brave enough to do a video that was shown to all senior leadership on how anti-Black racism impacts me as an employee in municipal government. A couple other little quick things that I do want to mention. We've already talked a bit about the Africville visioning process. Again, more information will be provided when we pull together all the information on Africville. We have an African Nova Scotian Road to Economic Prosperity. So the municipality has an economic action plan. We specifically have an African Nova Scotian Economic Action Plan. That also might be one where you might want to have a guest come in. That is led by the Halifax Partnership through Carol Ann Wright. And we work very closely, but that is something that has been heavily involved when we are looking at economic growth, planning, those types of things in communities. That's a phenomenal piece of work that I'd love this committee to really know a bit more about. So I just wanted to give you just a little bit of a short update. Our updates in the future will be more inclusive. But again, we just wanted to give you a little bit of a feel, some of the things that the team is working on and continues to work on. And then again, feel free to ask questions of us at any time, but this is a standing item on your agenda. Thank you. Any questions? I suppose I should ask.
Just while we're here, just out of kind of topic a little bit, how do I go about just not even with this committee, but just recommending that Halifax municipalities create like have spaces for cigarette butts? I'm actually like a nurse navigator for the long screening program, and that's it's one of like my biggest thing that I'm trying to like with pollution and all that stuff.
So Tamar used to lead that program.
Yes.
She was, when we put in our smoking bylaw designated spaces.
Yeah.
So we do have designated smoking spaces. So if cigarette butts are in other locations, then people are smoking in non-designated areas. Well, Tamar, do you have more to add?
So what I can say is that it's about prevention. It's about prevention, not punishment. We could still have them like at the bus stops, even though they're not supposed to be there, but it will help the environment.
Yeah.
And it will help a lot of things. Is that a possibility?
I don't know how you address
No,
that
I
one.
just think that.
Turn
I
your
think
mic
that-
on.
Oh, sorry. And keep in mind, this was years ago for me, so I'm just, but that did come up, but proximity of other folks waiting at the bus stop that wouldn't want smoke, like that have health issues or children or whatever the case may be, or that just don't want smoke, that wouldn't be a good place for a receptacle.
Very true. Very true. But they still do it anyway, so why not prevent the environmental impact of it?
Just off the top of my head, a personal guess would be that we wouldn't want to encourage that happening.
But it's not encouraging it. That's the thing that we have to realize. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop, but we can debate this. It's not encouraging it, it's prevention.
I hear what you're saying. I appreciate it.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes.
I just had a question around the upcoming, you mentioned, I think it was an ABR conference for staff. Would we have access to that as the committee?
No.
No?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Fumo, Maps, if I may.
Yes.
That is a staff conference.
Yes.
So it's only for staff. That's not to say in the future, we might not be looking at an ABR conference. But for me, if an ABR conference was to happen in the municipality, I think it should be led by community, not by us. Because we're coming at it from a specific perspective, specifically around municipal government. So, but yes, no, it's not accessible
Okay.
to this committee.
I ask because I'd like maybe all of us to get a sense of what staff are learning about, anti-Black racism, what their approaches to anti-racism are, so we could have a better sense of what the municipality is doing for their staff to equip them with the
We
tools.
can always do a report.
Okay.
We can always come back. You wouldn't hear it firsthand, you'd hear it from staff, but we could always report on what we're learning from the conference and what our actions are moving forward.
Okay. And also, I think it would be beneficial if the committee was, however possible, kept in the loop with upcoming summits. For example, the Road to Economic Prosperity. I think that's September 20-something, 23rd, I think it is. If we may want to attend, I mean, it's voluntary, it's free. It would help us get a sense of, the broader portfolio of work that's going on right now.
Can we have that circulated to everybody? So we just have it, like that summit that you're talking
Yeah.
about,
So
and where
through-
it's located?
through the clerk's office.
Yes.
Tamar will work with the clerk's office to get that information out. And moving forward, when there are things coming up, we can ensure that that information through the clerk's office is circulated to the committee.
Perfect,
To the
thank
best
you.
of our ability.
Of course, no one's perfect. We deferred the next meeting date, so we're gonna figure that out. And we already did the yeah on Nathan, so all good. So, okay, so I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. Is that okay?
You just require a mover.
Oh, I need a mover. Oh my goodness. I need a mover
Yes. mover.
and I need a seconder.
No seconders for adjournment.
Oh.
Just a motion. Motion to
Perfect.
adjourn.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, motion moved forward.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Perfect. Ooh, I feel like a lawyer.
The first one's the hardest. It'll always get easier. You're gonna walk down with me through the building?